My distinguished colleagues, I am Senator George Thompson Sekibo, CON. I represent all the people of the Rivers East Central District, all. Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity to move this motion. The need to install computerized oil facilities management gadgets for Nigerian crude oil business. It is co-sponsored by 29 very eminent, distinguished senators. Mr. President, the Senate is aware that for over 60 years, over 70% of the Nigerian national income comes from petroleum-related businesses, while the remaining 20% comes from other sundry sources. We are also that 90% of Nigerian export revenue comes from oil, gas, and associated products. Knows that oil exploitation and exploration started in Nigeria in 1957, and commercial quantity for exportation commenced about 1958. And for over 61 years, harvesting and sale of petroleum products has been the mainstay of both the national income and foreign reserve. Knows further that both national gross domestic product (GDP) and income per capita rating by international monetary policies depends on revenue made from the crude production and sales. Believes that the petroleum product business, as the mainstay of our national economy, ought to have been given priority attention in terms of protection, expansion, quantity, and total quality control. Worried that over 61 years in such business as a nation, Nigeria cannot give account of total amount of petroleum product produced, total sold, total wasted, and amount lost through pilfering or pipeline vandalisation. Understands that the International Energy Agency put Nigeria production at about 2.53 million barrels per day, well below its oil production capacity of over 3 million barrels per day in 2011. Nigeria is Africa's biggest oil producer with a maximum production capacity of about 2.5 million barrels. But this mega quantity is always under attack through oil platforms theft, petroleum vandalism, which has reduced the quantity produced. Worried that a foreign-based journal, the London Economist, described Nigeria government having shared reputation in its crude oil governance as between 100,000 and 400,000 barrels of crude oil are estimated to be stolen, translating to 64 million barrels to 146 million barrels per year. Worried further that while these figures stand doubtful, on August 30, 2019, the Nigeria National Economic Council, through a submission by NNPC, has put the amount of crude oil stolen in the first 6 months of 2019 at 22 million barrels, translating to 1.3 trillion naira for 6 months, or about 3.0 trillion naira per year. Understand that other major oil-producing countries, such as Kuwait, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates, just to mention a few, that have oil as the mainstay of their economies, have computerized management systems that record the quantity of oil produced, quantity sold, and at what price. Same system also have global positioning system, GPS monitoring facilities that can give information on all the entire oil business processes in their countries. Understands further that the computerized oil management system assists in the pipeline protection trigger off alarms when any section of the pipeline is disturbed for whatever reason. The system detects if there is a weak section along the stretch of the pipeline, indicate the position and point of such section, as well as advices on how to mend or go about it. The same system captures pictures of suspected intruders on the pipelines. The computerized management facilities are equipped with firefighting gadgets in the event of fire outbreak associated with oil and gas production and exploitation. Concerned that till today, while other countries in the same business venture, just as we do, have gone digital with computerized management facilities for the past 50 years, Nigeria as a nation is still doing our petroleum business with analogic technology, using human beings, 4 persons to monitor a kilometer of pipeline, giving undue opportunities to oil pilferers, giving rise to unnecessary pipeline explosion, causing death and unquantifiable loss of products and other human valuables. Believes that the cost of the loss incurred in the first 6 months of 2019 will be near adequate to install any type of sophisticated system that will help manage our inefficiency and salvage the wretched reputation assigned to us by the London Economist. Believes that Nigeria has the capacity in terms of funding to install both pipelines and product evaluation computerized system to save waste, have accurate knowledge of production, as well as avoid pilfering through breakage of pipelines, causing loss of human lives and environmental degradation. Believes further that one key area of fighting corruption is through effective management of the source itself, that is, the source of revenue, just as the present administration emphasizes on the fight against revenue pilfering at different levels of government by operators. It is believed that more revenue than what we can imagine may have been lost through ineffective management of the petroleum products than the physical municipal cash taken by operators of the national economy. Believes that any attempt at solving this major economic hill of the nation will be attempting to protect the provisions of 1999 Constitution in Section 55(5) and Section 16(1)(a) and (b) as given below. 15(5). The state shall abolish all corrupt practices and abuse of power. 16(1). The state shall, within the context of the ideals and objectives for which provisions are made in this Constitution, harness the resources of the nation and promote prosperity and an efficient, a dynamic and self-reliant economy, and control the national economy in such manner as to secure the maximum welfare, freedom, and happiness of every citizen on the basis of social justice and equality of status and opportunity. The Senate accordingly resolves to 1. Mandate the Committee on Petroleum, Upstream, Downstream, and Gas Resources to hold a public hearing with the stakeholders to ascertain the quantity of oil and gas produced daily, the quantity control mechanism as currently engaged by NNPC and if adequate, the amount of waste of petroleum product through pilfering, pipeline vandalization, leakages, and from any other forms, international best practice of computerized oil and gas business management, including pipeline protection and quantity and quality control, and any other advice that could improve the oil and gas business in the country. Prayer number 2. Urge the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to set up a consortium of such experts to evaluate the possibility of installing computerized oil facility management gadgets to curb the excesses of the multifaceted problems associated with the oil and gas production, transportation, and sale business in the country. Mr. President, I so move.
Betty Apiafi, I represent Rivers West Senatorial District and from Rivers State. So, President, I'd like to commend my colleague, Igualabo from Okrekaland, Senator George Sekibo, for presenting this very important motion this morning. Mr. President, like he said in one of the paragraphs in the motion, we've been producing oil for 61 years as a nation. And it's a shame that as a nation we cannot account for the total amount of petroleum products we produce. Neither can we talk about, crude we produce, and neither can we talk about the total sold and total wasted. It's quite a pity because we've been a bit, should I say, not too compliant with international best practices in the management of our petroleum industry. The rate of pilfering, pipeline vandalization, leakages, gas flaring, which are part and parcel of this industry, has caused so much damage because of, again, I said, the lack of coordination, proper coordination of that industry. This has caused a lot of damage to the oil-producing areas, damage that in the years when oil is may no longer be useful to us as a nation, the ecological damage to these areas will go beyond those years. For instance, there has not been any comprehensive remediation in any of the communities in the Niger Delta other than the one that is recently done in Ogoniland. This shows you how bad the situation is. And of course, up to last week, some communities in the Niger Delta area were still complaining about the fact that the military is still damaging barges that are filled with what illegal petroleum theft. They're blowing up those barges, and it's causing more damage to the ecology of the oil-producing areas. The mover of the motion said there are so many advantages to computerize the maintenance management system of our oil sector. One of it is to manage work order efficiently. Software for management, of course, software for management is what is in vogue now, even for car repairs and for anything we do. There are softwares that can manage almost every process. So using that in our oil sector is something that we should have actually done a long time ago. Of course, when you have software to manage your process, of course, it gives you up front the kind of spares we need to keep in place. And of course, where the spares are stored and all of that. Of course, if you have software to manage your process, all of us know the fraud that goes on in the so-called maintenance, turnaround maintenance of our refineries, for instance. They will tell you, oh, the part is missing, then there's a shutdown of refineries before they will now import those parts and bring in those parts. So of course, you waste a lot of production time. That's why most of our refineries cannot function efficiently. Of course, if you have this kind of maintenance management system in place, our refineries will function better, spares will be imported on time, where they are kept, records will be kept, so that these spares can be used and reduce the cost of production and make our refineries function better. And then, of course, this will also increase safety of our production process and enhance productivity. I'd like to really commend the mover of the motion because, and I do hope that after this motion, the necessary bodies that are supposed to take this action into consideration in the NNPC will make sure that we computerize our processes and use the internationally acceptable standards to maintain and monitor manage our computerized maintenance system, to make sure that we take full advantage of what we have today as the main income earner for our nation and be able to be accountable fully and be able to also use it to the development of our nation. I so support Mr. President.
Senator Ezenwa Onyewu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Ezenwa Francis Onyewuchi. I represent Imo East Senatorial District of Imo State. Mr. President, let me first of all start by commending the mover of this motion. This is timely, this is critical, to our survival as a nation, Mr. President. I consider this very, very critical. Nigeria today runs a mono economy, which means we depend on oil to a large extent to fund most of the things we do here, especially in the area of infrastructural development. And today, we are having an epileptic funding of our budget. This is because we do not derive the full benefit of an oil-producing nation. We produce oil, but we lack the capacity to fund our budget, to fund infrastructural development in our country. We have to look inwards, and this is a very important way of looking inwards. What we have to do is to plug the loopholes, and I'm a strong and firm believer in plugging the loopholes. And like I always say, and I believe strongly, that if we are able to do this, we will reduce the loan we take as a nation, with all the attendant disadvantages of taking loans as a nation. I also believe that if we do this, we are going to save our citizens from excessive taxation, because the essence of the taxation is essentially to get more funds for the nation in order to take care of our needs and fund our infrastructural development. So if we are able to plug the loophole through a computerized system, Nigeria will be saving so much money that maybe, Mr. President, we may not need to look at other countries or other agencies to get loan to do what we need to do as a nation. So I think moving forward, Mr. President, whatever we invest in this area, I think is an investment well done. Because if we computerize our system, Mr. President, we're going to save a lot of money. And like the international community look at us as people who cannot manage the God-given resources that we have. Mr. President, this lies at the very table of not being able to protect our God-given natural resources. Mr. President, I think this motion is important. I think it is critical, and I urge all my colleagues to please support this motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ibrahim.
This motion is a very important motion because it talks about revenue generation. Because if you don't computerize what you have, if you don't have computerized management, if you don't have ICT involved in your measurement and production, then there is no way you can be able to have exactly what you have. Because what is happening currently is that you produce, but you don't know what you produce. You sell, but you don't know what you sell. You lift, but you don't know what is lifted. So you find that you are blind. So the tendency is that, honestly, if you are using analog way of operation, then you will now produce without knowing exactly what it is. So it will be about, you will say you are producing 50% of the whole capacity. And if somebody takes something, then it will be said that he has taken maybe about 3/4 of what is supposed to be 100%. So I think it's very important that we try to computerize this one. In fact, not only production, but quality, lifting, and whatever you have. Because you have to have load cells everywhere that will adequately measure the quantity you are taking and then you are lifting or producing. If you don't do that, then I think you are going to have a problem, because I am definitely sure if you employ that, then corruption is going to be eliminated totally. Then at the same time, you will see that you will be getting about maybe billions of naira that will add to that will reduce the deficit we have. So I think this is a very important motion. It has come here very timely, and I therefore support it, and I think everybody should support this motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Matthew Rogide. I represent Edo South Central District. Mr. President, I want to lend my very soft voice, in supporting this this motion, ably moved by Senator Sakibo. You will recall, Mr. President, when we were doing the confirmation hearing of ministerial appointees, there was this question that was put forth to those candidates that had, some bias, in the oil sector. And some of the questions we asked that time was this issue of pilfering, and then, of course, undermining our economy by saboteurs in this sector. So this motion coming now, I think is just one, very cogent solution to the problems. So, President, it's common knowledge that, at the point of, sales of our crude oil and even gas, nobody really has been able to say this is the quantum that is sold, because we don't even know the quantum that is produced. All the assumptions that we produce 2.3 million barrels of crude oil a day, there's nothing really, sacrosanct about this figure. But, more worrisome is the fact that when we even sell, there has been this notorious, phrase, topping. I recall I mentioned it to one of the nominees. What is topping? Topping is just this issue of giving excess crude dash only for those persons that want to put, such things into their pockets. If we just can take care of it by computerizing some of these, equipment that we use, or use technology to even trace, what we produce and what we sell, of course, we will not have this problem. So with this motion, we know that, we'll be able to, cure it to some extent. I want to talk about the issue of even pre-shipment inspection. Mr. President, that is another very huge, area of huge loss to our country. If we computerize even the inspection of crude oil at places, because there are concerns or enterprises that have been, put into service by government. They have agreements with, companies that do pre-shipment. And these pre-shipment figures that are done, you will know that they have already been compromised, because we don't have computerized systems that can really tell us what, of course, these pre-shipment, companies, do on behalf of this country. So it's another very huge area of loss. So computerizing it, of course, we call it help us. Look at the issue of vandalization. It is still a very huge assumption, because there is nothing that records it for. There's no technology that records it for us. And of course, when these figures are being bandied, they are just arbitrary figures. So having to go the way of technology and computerizing all the equipment and all those things that we have to use, both in our oil and gas production, I think will help us a long way. Thank you very much for the privilege.
Dr. Gabriel Sus from Benue Northeast. Mr. President, I think there's a need for us to be worried about the issue raised in this very important motion. First, we've engaged in oil production since 1957, as stated in the motion. Mr. President, if we started oil production in the 20th century, and in the 21st century, in the age of ICT, we're still being told that our oil production is not computerized, then there's a need for us to be very worried. Mr. President, you will recall that when they brought the MTEF here for our debate, inside the MTEF, it was stated by the presenters of the MTEF that in 2019, which is the year we're in the budget, that there was the production was predicated on 2.3 million barrels a day. Unfortunately, part of why the budget couldn't perform was because production fell short of 2.3 as predicted. Even in this year, 2020, we were told in the MTEF that they needed a meeting of stakeholders to arrive at what is presented in the budget. That then means that there is something funny that is going on, Mr. President, because the whole process of oil production is computerized. And so if it is true that at the end part of it, where we are supposed to take crude, is not computerized, Mr. President, I do not believe that. I think that part of the mandate that will be given to the committees as suggested by the mover of this motion is to really confirm, is our production not computerized in the 21st century? And if it is not computerized, why? Because for me, I suspect that there is a lot of fraud going on in there. Because if at this stage we're unable to determine how much oil we produce in a day, and then what we have in the budget is highly speculative, because we're not sure if what is presented will be the exact amount of oil that will be produced. If it is not, then it means that the budget that is presented year in, year out, at all times fails from the day that it is presented. Because the main source of revenue is highly speculative, as we are being told now. Mr. President, I think that we need to look at this more critical and more serious than we've done in the past. Let us confirm whether the oil production is not computerized, and if it's not computerized, why? So that at any time we are told that oil production per day is 2.3 million barrels a day, we are certain that that is what is being produced. For now, it is speculative. They said 2.1, 2.2. Then at the end of the day, we are told that it was 1.9. So there is a problem with this. So I think what Sekibo has done today is to help not just the NNPC, but to help the entire country determine really what is happening in NNPC. And if we do that, Mr. President, I think we do this country a lot of good. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Committee on Petroleum, Upstream, Downstream and Gas Resources to hold a public hearing with the stakeholders to ascertain the quantity of oil and gas produced daily, the quantity control mechanism as currently engaged by NNPC, and if adequate, the amount of waste of petroleum products through pilfering, pipelines, vandalisation, leakages, and from any other forms, international best practice of computerized oil and gas business management, including protection and quantity and quality control, and any other advice that could improve the oil and gas business in the country. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Urge the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to set up a consortium of such experts to evaluate the possibilities of installing computerized oil facilities management gadgets to curb the excesses of the multifaceted problems associated with oil and gas production, transportation, and sales business in the country. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Before the additional prayer, the lead committee will be the petroleum downstream. Additional prayer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The additional prayer I want to make is to urge the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to appoint the pre-shipment inspectors as required by law under the Pre-Shipment Inspection Act of 1996. Because it's very, very...
The addition.
Yeah, so I second the prayer already proposed by...
A minute. With an explanation, isn't it? The prayer mover, are you okay with the explanation? Even though that's not your place, but it's okay, I will take it. So, those in favor of the additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional prayer? Also comment on this, the point raised by Senator Suswam, whether it is 218 or 1.7, I mean 2.18 million or 1.7 million or so. I think there are so many variables involved in this. Sometimes the production could be disrupted, and therefore we may not be able to achieve the production quota per day. But I believe that this motion is a genuine effort by very distinguished senators, supported by distinguished senators, to ensure that we are not shortchanged as a country. So going forward, our joint committee should ensure it does a very good job, because this is very, very important and significant that we're able to find out what is really happening in the oil sector. The lead committee will be the Senate Committee on Downstream. Upstream and gas will work together with that committee. At the moment, the ruling is without finance. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.